Hello, Riderflex Nation. Steve Urban here. More career advice and job interviewing tips. Today's podcast, turning critical employee mistakes into positive morale boosters, or turning them into a positive in general. I want to share a personal story with you today on how I made a critical mistake early on in my career that the supervisor I had at the time turned into a positive. I was a store manager for a big retail company in my late 20s. I was doing well, and in fact, I had been selected as one of the top managers in the company, along with several others. I was working hard to get promoted to district manager. That was my big goal at the time, primarily so I could get my first company car. That was a big deal back then. So I was working hard, wanted to get promoted. I was told, hey, Steve, we're going to send you on this trip to Utah. There's about 20, 25 other managers in the company. Keep in mind, there were about 1,000 managers at the time. 20 to 25 other managers picked to go on this trip to Utah. You're going to do a week's worth of projects. One of those projects is going to be remodeling a store, but there were several other things we did. The regional manager, the vice presidents were there. Lots of important people there observing this group of managers as they worked through the week. Now, we knew that it was a trip to assess our strengths. We knew we were being observed and watched and analyzed. We all knew it. We were told in certain ways that this was an important trip, and there were probably going to be decisions made around who the next district manager for the company would be out of this group. So we knew it was an important trip. We knew we were being watched. We knew every single behavior was being judged, etc. One day we were working really hard at this store remodel. We finished up work and we all drove to a restaurant for dinner. We had rented 4 or 5 Jeeps where all the store managers piled in, and so 4 or 5 Jeeps going down the road to the restaurant, 4 or 5 people in each vehicle. We go to the restaurant. I happen to be one of the drivers for the Jeep. Of course, back then, every little thing mattered, including who grabbed the keys to be the leader and drive the vehicle. So I drove. I was one of the drivers in the Jeeps. We go to the restaurant. We have a couple of beers, of course, a couple of drinks. Everybody does. We're driving back away from the restaurant that night, going down a neighborhood street. There's large green trash cans that had been put out on the curb for all the homes down this particular street. Obviously, the next day was trash pickup day. And then I started getting some peer pressure from my buddies in the back saying, hey, Urban, why don't you hit one of those trash cans? Quote, that would be cool. Come on, you can do it. Hit one of those trash cans. Everybody thought it would be funny and cool for me to do that. Eventually, I caved into the peer pressure because I wanted to be, quote, the leader of the group. Caved in. I swerved over. I hit the trash can. Everybody laughed, thought it was cool. We get back to the hotel. We all get out of the vehicle. The entire right front fender is caved in on the Jeep. Bad news. Not totaled, but bad news. Everybody disappears. I'm standing in the parking lot by myself looking at the vehicle thinking, I just screwed up my career. Here I am on the trip of a lifetime trying to prove myself to the regional manager and the VPs, trying to be that next guy that gets promoted, and I make a mistake like this. I go right into the hotel. I go right up to my boss's room. I knock on the door, and I tell him exactly what happened. I tell him it was my responsibility. I made the decision to do it. I accept full responsibility. It's not anybody else's fault. I made a stupid mistake. I apologize. How do I fix it? How do I pay for it? How do I repair the situation? My boss comes down. We look at the vehicle together in the parking lot. He looks over at me and he says, Steve, let's talk about it in the morning. The morning comes. I'm at breakfast with all the other store managers who, of course, at this point think I've totally ruined my career. I'm no longer a competitor to them to try to get the district manager spot. My boss comes over to him and he says, hey, look, I thought about it. I really like the way you handled yourself in the moment. I appreciate your honesty and your transparency, and I appreciate the fact that you took responsibility for what happened. He said, I tell you what, let's turn the vehicle into the rental place, and we'll just tell them that it happened in the mall parking lot while we were remodeling the store, and we're not quite sure who did it or what happened. So that's what we did. We turned the vehicle in. Nobody said anything else. Several weeks later, I'm the one that gets promoted to district manager out of the entire group. Now, am I telling you to go out and rent a company, or wreck a company vehicle, or wreck a vehicle that your company has rented so you can get promoted? That's not what I'm telling you to do with this podcast. In fact, I'm not saying make a critical mistake, because that's how you get promoted. The point of the podcast is this. Every employee makes mistakes, right? Sometimes critical mistakes. And sometimes there's employees with a ton of potential, right? Maybe they're younger in their career and they make a bad decision or a bad judgment call. I think those are times when you as a supervisor or a manager can capture their attention. You can take care of them. You can save them from the situation. You can coach them through it, win them over. You do that, and you build loyalty in that employee for a long, long time, which, by the way, I had. When that supervisor did that for me, he was a great mentor for me, and I followed him for many, many years and was super loyal to him after that. So it's a great chance for you as a supervisor to help an employee through a bad mistake that they made, especially when they have tons of potential and you know they're going to turn out to be a great executive. You as the employee, when you make the mistake, your opportunity there is to do the right thing. Make sure you go to the right people right away, accept responsibility for your mistake, tell them what happened, offer to fix it, try to fight your way through it. Don't lie about it. Don't try to, get around the issue or blame it on somebody else. Just accept responsibility. And I think when you do that, you'll have a much better chance of moving through it in a positive light. So the point is, take these critical mistakes that happen and turn them into a positive. Make them a morale booster for yourself. And if you're an employee, or if you're a manager, make it a positive for the person that's working for you. And there is your Riderflex tip of the day. Folks, as always, you can visit riderflex.com, learn more about us. You can listen to our podcast just about anywhere these days. Call in, ask us questions, send us emails. We'll help you in any way we can. Thanks a lot for listening, and have a great day.